Back in 2000, Iran and Afghanistan battled for ownership of what they believed to be the mummified remains of a 2,600-year-old Persian princess. The mummy was found by police during a raid of a Baluchistan chieftain home in Karahan, Pakistan, and was to be sold on the black market for millions. When she was discovered, the mummy's head was adorned with a golden crown and there were gold ornaments in her coffin, which truly made it seem that an archaeological wonder had been found. However, not everyone was convinced that the mummy was the real deal. Professor Ahmad Dani, director of the Institute of Asian Civilizations in Islamabad, claimed to have known from the beginning that the mummy was not all it was cracked up to be. He was not wrong. It was soon discovered, after a detailed study of the remains, that the body was not 2,600 years old and not a Persian princess. It was revealed that the coffin she rested in was not as old as her remains was believed to be, and that the mat she was laid on was possibly a mere 5 years old. The Persian mummy was now believed to be the body of a 21-year-old female murder victim, her neck, jaw, and back broken. Finally, it was confirmed, with the help of radiocarbon testing, that the victim had died in 1996. The mummy was buried in 2005 without the victim ever being identified. On April 1, 2014, Dutch students, Lizanne Freun and Chris Kremers waved goodbye to the family hosting them during their long-planned trip to Panama and walked off with the family dog for a hike along the Baru volcano. They posted on Facebook that they were going to walk around Bokeh before tackling the hiking trail. That evening, the host family noticed the dog traipsing back into the house, but there was no sign of the two young women. Assuming they may have decided to overnight on the trail, the family waited until morning. However, when they discovered that Chris and Lizanne never showed up for their private walking tour of Bokeh, the family immediately contacted the police. Chris and Lizanne's parents arrived in Panama 5 days later and waited anxiously for news of their children as police and detectives scoured the forest for 10 days. It took 10 weeks for a break in the case. A local woman turned up at the police station with a blue backpack she had found on a riverbank in the Boco del Toros region. Inside the backpack were Lizanne's passport, sunglasses, 2 pairs of bras, a water bottle and some cash. Police also found a camera and both girls' cell phones in the backpack. When they scrolled through the phones, they found that there had been 77 attempts to call the police and emergency services in both Panama as well as the Netherlands. Due to lack of signal in the area, these calls did not go through. On one of the phones they found several photos of the trail and surrounding forest. There were also photos taken on April 8 of the girls' belongings scattered over some rocks and a disturbing photo of the back of Chris' head showing blood streaming from her temple. 2 months later, bones were found in the forest. DNA tests confirmed that the bones belonged to the 2 missing girls. Later in 2014 they were publicly declared dead of a hiking accident. Police never found out how they died or if someone was responsible for their deaths. Historian Dan DeLuca spent most of his life researching a deceased homeless man's life. Ever since he stumbled upon his grave in the Sparta Cemetery in Ossining, New York, DeLuca had been fascinated with the man known as Leatherman. He learned that the inscription on Leatherman's gravestone incorrectly referred to the deceased as Jules Bourglet of Lyons, France. He also knew that Leatherman had been a source of mystery for people in Westchester County and western Connecticut since the 1850s. Leatherman was said to have had a strange ritual which contributed to much of the speculation surrounding him. Once a month, he would walk 360 miles between the Hudson and Connecticut rivers. Being homeless, he was dressed very modestly in patchwork garments and wooden shoes and very rarely spoke to anyone. He slept in the forest and sometimes in caves, but he would never stay inside a building for more than a couple of minutes. He often asked for food as he passed by a farmhouse and the occupants were amazed at his appetite. He could eat a staggering amount while remaining standing at the front door. The press began following Leatherman's movements and chronicled his travels for over 30 years. In modern times the research into this mysterious man continues. Pearl Jam got caught up in the mystery and wrote a song about him. Leatherman's real name and age at that time remains unknown, as does his place of birth and where he grew up. Nina Craig Miles was born to Myra Adelia Thompson Craig Miles and John Henderson Craig Miles on August 5, 1864. As she grew, Nina learned to love riding on a horse-drawn buggy. During one such outing with her grandfather on St. Luke's Day in 1871, the buggy they were riding in was hit full-on by an oncoming train as they were crossing the railroad tracks. 7-year-old Nina was killed on impact. While her family grieved, Nina's father changed his will to include a clause that stated he wished to be buried inside the mausoleum where Nina's ashes rested. John Craig Miles also ensured that an Episcopal church was built in Nina's memory, which included the marble mausoleum in the churchyard to keep Nina's ashes in. The church was named St. Luke's Memorial Episcopal Church and was consecrated in 1872. John died in 1899 and was buried as requested, inside Nina's mausoleum. Sometime later, red stains started appearing on the outside of the mausoleum. Efforts to clean the stains failed, and when the marble blocks were replaced, the stains simply reappeared. In modern times, sightings have been reported of a little ghost girl in 1800s clothing, playing outside the mausoleum. The red stains, whom many believe to be blood, are still visible on the Craig Miles Mausoleum in Cleveland, and tourists love relating the story. However, the cause of the stains remains a mystery. On February 21, 1997, a listener appeared as a guest on Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. The man called himself Mel Waters and related a story reminiscent of the Pet Sematary plot. Waters claimed that a mysterious hole had appeared on his property in a rural area 9 miles west of Ellensburg in Kittitas County, Washington. He went on to say that the hole was more than 80,000 feet deep and could resurrect dead animals. Waters furthermore claimed that government officials seized his land, took ownership of the hole, and paid him to relocate to Australia. 5 Waters appeared on the show again in 2000 and 2002, soon after which it was reported by a local newspaper that no one named Mel Waters ever lived on the Monastash Ridge near Ellensburg. Most people wrote the story off as ramblings by an unstable man and didn't give the mystical hole another thought. Then in 2008, a medicine man named Red Elk claimed that he knew the mysterious hole well and that it could set ice on fire. He also made the bizarre claim that the hole cooked a sheep while it was still alive and then made a seal appear inside the cooked sheep. To this day, no one knows the real identity of Mel Waters and why he appeared on radio 3 times to relay a story that was only ever corroborated by one other person. Even so, some die-hard believers still find time in their schedule to wander around the Monastash area in the hopes of finding this mysterious hole in the ground. When 15-year-old Emanuela Orlandi finished her second year of high school in Rome in 1983, she chose to continue with flute lessons at the Tommaso Ludovico da Vittoria School. On June 22, 1983, Emanuela asked her brother, Pietro, to accompany her on the bus to the music school, but he had prior commitments. She arrived late to class that day and later telephoned her sister to inform her that she had been given a job opportunity to become a representative of Avon Cosmetics. The rep who had presented her with the opportunity spoke to her before her music lesson, causing Emanuela to run late. Later that day, Emanuela told a friend of hers about the job, before getting into a BMW and riding off. 6 Emanuela Orlandi was never seen again. Many false leads materialized over the years, as did an abundance of theories on what may have happened to the young girl. Some believe that she was abducted by a Bulgarian neo-fascist youth group. Others claim that she is living in a Muslim community in Paris. Even more outrageous theories include that her kidnapping was part of a plot to kill St. John Paul II, or could even be linked to the seedy underbelly of Rome. In 2017, an Italian journalist claimed to have stolen a document from the Vatican which suggested that the Holy See arranged Emanuela's disappearance. The Vatican immediately claimed, "Fake news." In July 2019, the Vatican excavated the tombs of 2 19th-century German princesses in the Pontifical Teutonic College Cemetery after an anonymous tip was received that Emanuela's remains was buried inside them. Instead, they found completely empty tombs, meaning the remains of the princesses are in question as well. During these excavations, 2 sets of bones were found under a stone stab which are in the process of being inspected. Hopefully the mystery of what happened to Emanuela Orlandi will finally be solved in 2019. When Catherine Marie Hobbs was 8 years old, her parents divorced. As if this wasn't bad enough for the young girl, her best friend died while they were both in middle school. Soon after, Catherine, or Kathy as her family called her, started having disturbing premonitions that she would not live past 16 years of age. Kathy and her sister Teresa moved to a Las Vegas suburb with their mother, where Kathy made new friends and eventually woke up on her 16th birthday on April 20, 1987, feeling greatly relieved that nothing terrible had happened to her. As the days passed after her birthday, Kathy grew confident that her premonitions were nothing more than a figment of her imagination. On July 23, 1987, Kathy left her house to buy a novel at the local supermarket a block and a half away. Her mom kissed her goodbye in case she fell asleep before Kathy returned. The next morning, Kathy's mom knocked on her bedroom door only to discover it was empty. Kathy never made it back home. Her mother filed a missing persons report immediately. 9 days later, a hiker found Kathy's body near Lake Mead. When police were called, they discovered rocks at the murder scene with Kathy's blood on it, indicating that the teenager had been hit in the head repeatedly. The news devastated Kathy's mother and sister. Later, while cleaning out her bedroom, they found letters written by Kathy to each family member. The letters were dated a month before Kathy's 16th birthday. In them, she wrote that she loved them dearly and that they shouldn't be upset or dwell over her death. Kathy Hobbs' murder remains unsolved, even though a serial killer by the name of Michael Lee Lockhart was a prime suspect and eventually executed for another murder. On the last day of filming the movie, Titanic, in Nova Scotia, James Cameron suddenly felt inexplicably ill and disoriented. When he started vomiting, he realized something was very wrong. Once he got back to the set, he found he wasn't the only one feeling strange, as some of the cast and crew were vomiting or crying and some even laughing. At Dartmouth General Hospital, things took an even weirder turn when a crew member stabbed Cameron in the face with a pen while others started stealing unoccupied wheelchairs and wheeling themselves up and down the hospital corridors. Cameron, who was bleeding from the pen stab wound, couldn't stop laughing. Once the hospital staff ruled out food poisoning, they realized that chowder consumed by more than 60 people on set had been laced with PCP. Theories abounded, one of which had it that a dismissed crew member tried to take revenge by poisoning the food. Officially, the mystery remains long after the case was closed in 1999 due to a lack of suspects. In 1836, a group of boys set off for Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh, Scotland, to hunt rabbits. Intrigued by a concealed cave, the boys decided to peek inside. After pulling away the stones covering the entrance, they stumbled upon 17 miniature coffins, each with a wooden doll inside. The dolls had big eyes and were dressed in cotton clothing. When the discovery was reported in the Scotsman newspaper, the article mentioned that the coffins were decorated with funeral trappings and it seemed that they had been placed inside the cave recently. As is always the case with unexplained discoveries, multiple theories were presented to try and explain the coffins. Some people thought it might be children playing a trick, while others mused that witches might have used the coffins for rituals. Yet another theory said that the coffins may have been part of an ancient custom to give sailors who died at sea a Christian burial. A dark theory suggested that the coffins may have been set up in tribute of killers William Burke and William Hare, who murdered 17 people. The true purpose of the coffins and who placed them in the cave remains a mystery. In 2017, archaeologists made the startling discovery of a medieval dolphin skeleton on an islet off the coast of Guernsey. The following year, they made an even more baffling discovery, that of a male skeleton with no hands. Following an investigation, it was found that the skeleton of the man, believed to be a monk, was buried at a much later time than the dolphin, and the two incidents were not related. Archaeologists initially believed the islet, Chapelle d'Omhu, used to be much larger and home to a few Christian monks during the medieval era. One of the theories surrounding the mystery of the skeleton has it that the monk may have suffered from leprosy and had his hands cut off because of it. However, some experts feel this is unlikely and don't believe that the man was a monk, as the details on the skeleton's clothing indicate the body may have been buried in the 17th century, long after the islet would have been inhabited by monks. The skeleton discovery remains shrouded in mystery for the time being, as experts are still in the process of examining the remains and investigating a different theory which states that the man may have been a sailor who died at sea and was thrown overboard before washing up on the islet. If you are in the mood for more unsolved mysteries, Look no further than 10 creepy and obscure unsolved mysteries and 10 bizarre anonymous tips that shook up unsolved crimes.